Art in the field of cinema is a world of creative opportunity, each one trying to find their place among a multitude of other artists. Some living only to be remembered as one-time projects, while others continuing in a direction to solidify their influence beyond the screen and story. Then there are those whose influences are obscure, limited, remembered like a faint dream. As time passes, such artifacts are given their own kind of fame when people give recognition to those long ago times. As a young boy living in the comfort of my aunt's home, there I was surfing through TV trying to occupy my time. It was until I stumbled across this one intro when I was drawn into the show Making Fiends. A show of limited potential, a very obscure show. One that really stood out in terms of its uniqueness and overall design. But what was the show about? What were its themes? What it was going for? And what was its history? Such questions I'm going to be covering in this video. Originally, the show was an independent web series in 2003 designed by a UCLA animator by the name of Annie Whitefree. Looking at the web series, the show is rather simplistic. There are these two girls, Vendetta and Charlotte, each of them trying to get along in this rundown town populated by humans and these monsters called Fiends. It wouldn't be long until her show eventually gained influence, specifically that of the kids show Nickelodeon. When asked on how she got in contact with Nickelodeon, Whitefree said the following. A Nickelodeon employee had a daughter that was a fan of Making Fiends. He showed my site around work, and Nickelodeon folks contacted me to see if I might be interested in bringing Making Fiends to television. After multiple negotiations, a plan was settled to make Making Fiends into a show, making it Nickelodeon's first show to be based on a web series. It's in the beginning of each episode that we are presented with the plot of Making Fiends. A girl by the name of Vendetta creates fiends in order to terrorize the town of Clamberg. Then there's this other girl who wants to be friends with Vendetta, but she sees her as annoying, making these two girls the Tom and Jerry of the show. It's in the first episode called Charlotte's First Day that we are given a modest look at the setting of the story. Charlotte has just moved in from Vermont, and she's presented with the rundown town of Clamberg, which, to believe it or not, she's almost in denial of. She gets put into the same class as Vendetta, which begs the question, why doesn't Vendetta cancel school altogether when she has complete control of the town? But I digress. She eventually realizes just how annoying Charlotte can be. She then plans on creating a fiend that would devour her. This eventually backfires as a giant red cat comes in, vandalizes school grounds, or what's left of it, and squishing the fiend. Vendetta, obviously not pleased by this, tells her to stay away from her fiends. But Charlotte makes this one promise to her. In the next episode, we continue off with Charlotte trying to befriend Vendetta.
Okay. Hello, stranger. My name's Charlotte. Would you like to be friends?
Out! Go away and leave me alone!
In response, she sends her a fiend to terrorize her property. Expecting Charlotte to be finally dead, this backfires again, as she has now befriended the fiend, making it her pet. These two episodes are what makes up the formula for most of the show. Vendetta trying to get rid of Charlotte by creating a fiend, Charlotte instead befriending it, making it not work, or having it backfire onto Vendetta. There are then those episodes that go a bit deeper into the relationship between these two girls, represented by the episode called Dear Diary. Each of them described their interpretation of a situation both of them had experienced. It can be assumed that both sides have a very subjective view of each other, having taken their extreme personalities. But as the viewer, it does give you a more critical look at each of them, making them either someone you love or you hate. See, Vendetta is a character that could be described as fear-inducing, vindictive, and oppressive, the very person who brought down Clamberg, submitting it to a race of monsters. Then there's Charlotte, who could be described as kind, cheerful, optimist. But here we run into a dilemma. You see, despite Charlotte's ability to be kind and to make friends, she's also known to be very naive, as she doesn't seem to realize the environment she's living in, and is overly passive, unable to faze by any act of aggression.
What if Free backdrops for stupid girls. That's us.
This does at times put others at risk, like when she spent time with Vendetta's parents, or riding around town with a giant horse, or having to sing every opportunity. Now look here, I'm not a big fan of musicals, to be honest. Like, I'm not a fan of La La Land, or The Hills Are Alive, or whatever it's called. I have no motivation to watch Hamilton. Okay. I'll make some exceptions on that one. Moving on, her passive nature tends to make her in denial, making me wonder if she actually does care, or if she's even a grounded person. But let me play the devil's advocate when I say that in such a place like Clamberg, where it's subjected to a mad scientist of a girl who pretty much is dictatorial, Charlotte becomes less of an annoyance, but it's a beacon of hope, making her the better option. We do not see this with Vendetta, as there is no good side of her, other than perhaps the feeling of sympathy for her being tormented by Charlotte. And it's this torment that makes Vendetta a bit more empathetic, to say the least. This relationship goes on and on for each episode, an interaction not that far off from what's seen in Wild Coyote or Tom and Jerry. As for the direction of the show, it would last one season, ending in November of 2008, a subtle end to a work of craftsmanship. During the writing of this video, I tried to get a deeper insight into this video. Originally, I thought of talking about the duality between meekness and sternness, and how it pertains to us, but that would open up a whole new can of worms that would divert heavily from this review. And if I did make such an argument, it would most likely end up with me talking like some sort of conspiracy nutjob trying to connect imaginary dots to a kid's show. Now, is there a message for making Fiends? Perhaps in the eye of the beholder, but this is to be more of an objective view of the show, so we can give a lot more autonomy to the viewer while respecting the uncertainty of what Whitefree had intended. After all, we do need to take into consideration when we must draw the line when making claims that are too simplistic or overly specific, with each mindset being at risk of not seeing the real picture, as witnessed with me doing this review. With everything said and done, Making Fiends was a show that I would describe as a passion project. Its unique atmosphere, the characters, and limited screen time gave it a charm that's not that common in more conventional shows. In ending, Whitney gave some advice when being interviewed. Don't overthink things. Some people spend too much time laboring over concepts, researching equipment, and worrying about tiny details that they never actually end up completing their films. Start small and cheap. Audiences are forgiving, especially if you make them laugh.